Good evening to all of you. First of all, for me it's a big pleasure to host this meeting with Copernicus, Nereus, and the European Space Agency. I'm a member of the European Parliament, of course, as you see here. I'm involved, I'm a full member both on the Committee of Agriculture and Rural Development and the Committee of Fisheries, where, in fact, we understand the importance of space technologies to observe Earth. We cannot rely solely on the media, and for this, just to bring you a good example, and if you go to the last Economist, they have now a page, and from the observation from the space, we have the really picture what's going on wildfires in the world. And North America is 2%, and Africa is 60%. And we hear a lot about, so it shows, in fact, what is happening in our planet, and it shows better than when we have the media speaking about that, because the focus is found in the developing countries. And in observation and satellites are becoming really, these days here in Brussels, really on the spot. Yesterday I was opening a meeting of EOS on The Hague, the conference building here in Brussels, on the European Ocean Observation System. And today it's a pleasure to be opening this meeting of Nereus, Copernicus, and the European Space Agency. And Earth observation is thus fundamental, is demanding, is expensive, but is expanding. And the European Union, I recognize, and I had other meetings already with Copernicus and Nereus since I'm a member of the European Parliament, is doing a great work, building and assuring that Copernicus system is functional and efficient. But the society needs to be aware about the complex scientific, the scientific and technical complexity, the technology breakthrough, and the importance of this instrument as a tool for decision support. The book, I was marveled with the book, in fact. The book that is issued today brings to light 99 cases that illustrates the utilization of the tools provided by Copernicus for local and regional interest around Europe in a variety of fields and activities that would be fastidious to detail here, but they cover agriculture, fisheries, biodiversity, and environment, climate and energy, and so on. Interestingly, these tools are also, and I find it here, for control of subsidies on the Common Agriculture Policy and other issues on the Common Agriculture Policy monitoring. Some examples that are at the moment the most interesting for me because I'm shadow rapporteur for the Socialists and Democrats on the horizontal regulation for the Common Agriculture Policy and deals with monitoring and control. And in fact, I realized that Copernicus is a big tool that can be used on this. The importance of this tool extends surely to help monitoring and manage the application of other important legislative regulations and directives, like the Marine Spatial Planning or the Marine Strategy Framework Directive or the Common Fisheries Policy. So there is, in fact, a direct link between the capacity, the instruments, the tools that are provided by Copernicus, the engagement of the regions of Europe, and the legislation that the European Union wants to bring forward for management of our environment, but also of our industry and the progress of our society. The compilation of cases presented today shows that in good time, regions of Europe become connected and organized in Nereus, consortia taking good profit of the capacities of the EU system of 7 Copernicus Sentinel satellites provided and enabled by the European Space Agency, and 6 Copernicus service concerning emergency management, land monitoring, atmosphere monitoring, climate change, marine environmentally, and security. In Portugal, from where I come, so sorry to bring, we are having along the years major crises with forest fires. One of the tools used to forecast the movement of the flames used the image created by the Copernicus system. And it was important to understand and reduce the impact of this drama, and afterwards to understand the dimension of the burn area, and the administration should be using in a model to future restoration. But besides being Portugal, I come from outermost region, the Azores Islands. And it happens with all the territories encompassed by this concept of outermost regions are away from continental Europe, isolated, vulnerable to external change, but also with great potential in the blue economy. In the outermost regions, ocean observation is a matter of most important. Ocean observation is a crucial tool emphasized in the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, in the IPCC Special Report on Climate Change, the Oceans and Cryosphere, and in the G7 Tusuka communique, just to mention a few. Copernicus has an important role to play in view to help implementing and realizing the goals of 2030 United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda. And I look to see forward, so this is a challenge that I make to you. I like to see forward in the future Copernicus being more used outside Europe and helping in the externalization in the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific. A suggestion that Nereus to create an external branch in ACP countries. Okay, I'm on the interparliamentary delegation of European Union and ACP countries. The example brought here in this report are really outstanding in many cases. Imagine helping developing countries and island states to implement and use this tool through also regional connections. The progress towards sustainable development has all to do with reducing developmental asymmetries in the world. And there are several challenges that negatively affect the development of the blue economy, for instance, in these ACP countries. The underdeveloped and scientific and technological structure where a new focus on cooperation by the EU is required. How Copernicus and Nereus can help with this is my question, my challenge also to you. You are already doing a great job in the European Union. And in fact, what we can read here, and probably these are not the all cases, is outstanding. Congratulations to Nereus, congratulations to Copernicus, congratulations to the European Space Agency, and of course, congratulations to the European Commission, the European Union, and to Europe. Thank you very much.
Mr. Santos, thank you so much for your enriching involvement, impact, engagement, citizens, and also your proposal about these external possible dimensions of Copernicus are indeed at the core of this great and special evening. So thank you for your words, inspiring words, and also thank you for all your work and for hosting all of us here today. What a magnificent example of concrete impact from Copernicus. So, here we are, Copernicus4Regions. What an evocative title. Copernicus4Regions, what a great evening to see all of you here together for this special day. So we're here to celebrate this amazing, this unique publications, as we heard from you, but also we're here to discuss and debate with all of you, with you, the users, with you, close to the citizens, the impact, the real results of this extraordinary tool that is Copernicus and all its diverse domain applications, exactly those that you mentioned earlier on. Let me just now introduce not just the co-organizers, but the promoters of all this, those that have brought all these results together, those of among here, all of us, that are organizing this unique experience. So in order to be provocative, I'd like to call not just one of you and each of you, but the three of you here together. First of all, I'd like to invite Nereus Vice President, Bernard Plano, if you could join me, please. And then I'd like to have close also Andrea Ferpak from the European Commission, DG GROW. And then I'd like to invite Josef Aschbacher, who is Director, as we all know, of Earth Observation Programs. So a little bit a diverse, a different way of introducing. But I think this is indeed a collective example, a collective result. So please come join us come join me for this introduction, a collective introduction. The floor is yours. Vice President, would you like to come here? Andreas, would you like to come here? And Josef, would you like to come? Yes, all together. Because symbols are important. If you look at this, you see? Because symbols are important. Okay. Exactly. See, if you look at the etymology of the word symbols, means bringing together, connected. And here you are, Vice President. The floor is yours.
It's my turn.
Yes, it's
I give you the floor. I am the first. Dear Mr. Serrano Santos, dear Member of Parliament, dear Mr. Weisbach, exactly right. I don't know your first name. Andreas, okay. Dear Joseph Asbacher, okay, and ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start my introduction by thanking Mr. Santos, member of the European Parliament, for hosting this event. Also, I wish to express my sincere thanks to our partners, European Commission and the European Space Agency. We have developed a long-term partnership focused on promoting the European Earth Observation Program Copernicus at the regional level. It is already for the third cooperative initiative. Due to your commitment and support, we are able to make the situation at the regional level more transparent and show the health of regional space use. It is with great pleasure that we celebrate today the launch of the Copernicus4Regions publication with the title The Ever-Growing Use of Copernicus Across Europe's Region. These books. Okay. These books bring together a large panorama of 99 successful user stories across Europe. The publication is at your disposal here in the conference room, and I invite you to take a copy and to have a first-hand glance. Building on this foundation of our previous publication with the title Growing Use of GMS Across Europe's Region, that was realized in 2012, we want to explore the situation today, 6 years later, with a stronger focus on the involvement of public users at the level of local and regional authorities. In fact, we receive a largest number of user stories by public authority. This demonstrates that the services and solutions derived from Copernicus data and information are already applied by public administration in a variety of domains. I would like to quote an article from my own region is Occitanie, just to give you a brief background of Occitanie. Occitanie is a founding member of Nereus, and also is a top space region, you know. With more than 12,000 jobs, Occitanie is the home of CNES, major company, and some major companies like Airbus Defence and Space and Thales Alenia Space, numerous enterprise and startup, research institute, university, and so on. It also hosts Mercator Ocean, which manages the Copernicus Marine Service on behalf of the European Commission. I would like to speak about Eugenius, which has submitted an article. This project funded by Horizon 2020 has allowed the creation of a network company with expertise in the field of observation. This initiative is coordinated by a company Terranis based in Toulouse. The project aims to provide stakeholders with access to data analysis through different applications. We have invited users, public administration, private company, researchers, and other Copernicus stakeholders to share with us. We ask them to tell us how the system contributes with a game changer to better informed decision making, long-term planning, and more effective deployment of resources. We receive more than 100 articles from Nereus region, but also many from non-member regions. The submitted articles are carefully analyzed and evaluated by a multidisciplinary team from different organizations. The user story will help us to learn more about the different Copernicus reality across Europe. Let me, on this occasion, thank all involved authors and their team, to also the publication manager, the Politecno Milano, and the independent evaluator for this effort and hard work in order to contribute to the Copernicus4Regions publication. This publication has realized thanks to time, patience, and contribution of many volunteers. With the system producing more and more data, we see in this new edition a much broader panorama of use case in 8 application domains that are closely linked from which major competence of local and regional authority, like agriculture, food, forestry, fishery, biodiversity, environmental protection, climate, water, energy, territorial management, urban planning, civil protection, transport, civil infrastructure, safety public, health, cultural heritage. The user story shows the space has a tangible impact on everyone's daily life. But many challenges remain ahead. Data only help us to get halfway. We need to develop many applications and to bring the data in the non-space domain. Referring to expand health of data, I would like to underline the great opportunity to offer by free, full and open data access. Free and open data access and information policy represent a real opportunity to accomplishment. We acknowledge the hard work done by the European Commission and the European Space Agency to this end and thank them for their forward thinking. Copernicus has been built as a common public infrastructure. It produces public sector information, whose benefits we share as the European but also as the citizen of the world. The example of our publication gives vivid testimony that the data is important for all of us. It is vital that this new data and information treasure is given free of charge to entrepreneurs and public and commercial users so that they can experiment to explore, to develop new services and products. we should stick to our European principle that there are no restriction, neither on the use nor on user. Given the ease of data and information available, you could even make more use of it. That is why we advocate for promoting and reinforcing uptake and promotion programs targeted at the regional and local level. The important elements are communication, capacity building, providing training opportunity, inter-regional exchange, cooperation as well as sharing best practice. Therefore, networks like Nereus and Copernicus Relay and Academies are important as they can facilitate this exchange. The Copernicus4Regions is a precious tool to show our region and politicians the benefits of the system. But is the end, the citizen is the center. We need to communicate with the citizen in our region and foster social acceptance and better understanding. Tonight, we will bring some users and citizens to the stage to share their success story with us. They will be from different regions and related to various topics from agriculture to the monitoring of groundwater. I hope they will raise your interest and that will go back home with a good overview and the impact of Copernicus for everyone. Now is the time to pass the floor to Mr. Weisbach.
So hello and good evening also for me. I will try to be quite brief. I want to start off really with a note of appreciation and maybe a historical note. Maybe we should think back about 4 years just where Copernicus was and what we have achieved since. This has been a truly collaborative effort for which I would like to thank very much our friends from the European Space Agency, our colleagues from Nereus, but also all the entrusted entities, the parliamentarians and the member states who have been so supportive of Copernicus. 4 years ago, we didn't really have a space program. 4 years ago, we had a plan which was born about 20 years ago. As always, it has taken some time to implement, but we now have 7 satellites in orbit. We buy additional data from 50 missions around the world. We have 6 operational services. We have hundreds of thousands of users. We're one of the biggest data providers in the world. And I think having achieved that in the last 4 years is something that, frankly, is astonishing. So when we're looking at the European Union and we're looking at the Europe that works, then I think that the space programs, and Copernicus in particular, are an excellent example of that. I also want to maybe take a slightly more forward-looking approach to space and ask you to not just think back 4 years, but think forward 50 years. If you think about Copernicus and you think about space and you think about what you could grandiosely, I think, call the future of humanity, then if you look at the areas which Copernicus involves, so space, so digital and big data, so technological innovation, sustainability and environment, as well as security, I think that we can all agree that these 5 areas at the crossroads of which Copernicus finds itself will be pretty definitive in terms of where humanity will find itself in 50 years' time. We have seen a shift, which this excellent book here, I think, summarizes perfectly. 4 years ago, we were in a situation where we had no real space infrastructure, and the services of Copernicus were not all operational. We're now very much shifting our focus to the user, who is really at the core of this program. And the use cases which are described here, be that in the area of agriculture, emergency, civil protection, urban planning, flooding in Bulgaria, glaciers in Iceland, I think that it really shows what the free, full and open data policy is able to achieve. We talk about the digital economy, we talk about the leadership of maybe other regions of the world there, but we should not maybe forget that what we have in the shape of Copernicus is actually one of the flagship programs in terms of big data provision and facing the societal challenges that we have. we're also in a situation where I think Europe has become a world leader in Earth observation. And when we're thinking about the domains where Europe is a world leader, especially having built it up in such a short time, I would once again actually just like to extend my thanks to everybody who is involved with Copernicus to have made this a reality. Maybe a few words also on the side of the Commission. What we have tried to do at both the national and the regional level is to try to go directly to the users, because the purpose of this program is actually exemplified by the 99 cases that are expressed in this book. It's very nice having satellites, it's very nice having data, but in the end, the question will always be, after all this investment in the satellites, in the service provision, what is the benefit for the citizens? I think this book is a wonderful, wonderful example of what Copernicus can do at local level. From the Commission, we have tried to reinforce that. We have tried to set up a network of Copernicus relays, which are essentially Copernicus's ambassadors in the regions, as well as the Copernicus Academy, which constitute or are constituted by over 100 different research and academic institutions. The idea is that the free, full, and open data policy has worked absolute wonders for Copernicus. Some people call data the new oil, or used to, at least this was the buzzword about three years ago. But what we see now is that data has become so ubiquitous that the ability to translate that data into concrete applications, all of which you can find in this book, is actually the key to success of actually, I think, almost any societal program, such as the one we are talking about here. And with that, I will actually take no more time. I think that I have said everything I've wanted to say. I would actually just once again like to congratulate all our partners, and I would also very much like to congratulate our colleagues Inessa and Nereus once again for what I think is one of the best expressions of what I have seen to date of the concrete applications of Copernicus. Have a very nice evening.
So thank you very much also for having me to say a few words at the beginning of this event. First of all, let me also thank Nereus in particular for having organized this nice evening, but also having produced this booklet of 99 examples. And I do remember we had another booklet a couple of years ago with 60 examples. I was still in charge at that time at a much lower level in organizing these activities. And this really shows that there are so many applications and services happening, and this is something that comes together in the regions, and Nereus has done a fantastic job. And thank you again, Nereus, Vice President, and also Roya for doing a wonderful work. Let me also thank, just as Andreas has thanked before ESA, let me also thank the European Commission, because without the European Commission, Copernicus would not exist. The European Commission, together with the European Space Agency, have really since 20 years put this program together from the very early days where many people have been doubting whether this will ever see the day of light or the light of day, and having not believed that we are establishing what we are doing today, the world's best Earth observing system based on satellites, in situ measurements and other data. So I think this is really something we have achieved together, and I can only echo what was said by Andreas, that Europe is at its best by producing this system, which is world leading. So if you allow me, I have put a few slides together. It's more to highlight some of the aspects which are important for Copernicus, but also for Nereus, just to make a few points on what some of these aspects are. The next slide would show some of the grand challenges which we are facing in the world, not only in Europe, but in the world. And they are listed here. I have to bend over to read myself, but one, of course, is the changes that happen to the planet. The other ones are related to the technology and how fast technology is evolving. And then, of course, how we use this and transform this into information which are of use to people, to the citizens in Europe and across the world. The next slide would show some of these details, the changing planet Earth, which is highlighted here, which shows some of the statistics and figures, how fast our planet is growing. You all know that we have about 9 billion people by 2050. There's huge pressures on our planet, not only from the people, but also the overall ecosystem, which is under pressure. Climate change, of course, is a major issue. Rising temperatures, rising sea level. Just recently, a study was presented by the National Science Foundation in the US, which was expecting a sea level rise of 1.3 meters by the end of the century. And 1.3 meters at global level on average is a huge amount of sea level rise, and you can imagine that many areas will be flooded, some cities may disappear, and this really has an impact on everyone. The next slide shows some of the challenges of technology. You see here on the left side a picture which is actually quite a nice one. I showed it last week at a huge event we organized in Esrin at the establishment in Frascati. You might think this was painted by Van Gogh. Actually, it was not. What we did here is, and just to demonstrate the power of artificial intelligence, of computing power, we have shown the computer the picture of Van Gogh, of course, of Starry Night, which was painted in 1889. We have shown him a Sentinel-1 image and asked him, can you paint or can you produce a Sentinel-1 image in Van Gogh style? And this is what came out, which is quite an amazing proof of what computers can do these days. But computers can not only paint, they can also play chess, and they even win against the best chess players in the world. But they can also work on the data to convert data into information and see how these data can be made in a useful way. What this artificial intelligence can also do is, and this is on the very right-hand side, you see a very small chip. This is a Myriad chip, which is one of the smallest chips which is capable of using AI or producing results with artificial intelligence. But the specificity of this chip is that it only consumes 1 watt, which is very little. These light bulbs have probably 50 or 100 watts, so 1 watt is consumed by this chip, which is extremely important for satellites, for space. Because with such a low power consuming chip, you can actually put it in space. It doesn't produce too much heat, because heat is always a problem in vacuum, and therefore you can really put artificial intelligence not only on ground to analyze data, but even on space to have intelligent, even more intelligent satellites which are better programmed, interact among each other, and work as a system in order to have more tailored information. And there's a complete revolution taking place in technology. We are working on it in Europe quite actively, and we had last week 700 people in our center to really discuss how artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, all these elements can help with satellites, with Earth observation, to produce information that is relevant, but also really used in the most efficient way. The next picture, next slide, which shows what this means for the 21st data economy. Andreas was mentioning that data is the new oil, and this is absolutely true. Whoever has access to data has access to oil, has access to money, and therefore to information, which is crucial for the economy driven by digital means. So there, Copernicus comes into the game. With Copernicus, we are producing the largest amounts of data in the world, 15 terabytes per day, but we're disseminating about 10 times as much, 150 terabytes per day. And this is really the largest system. And I'm saying this very proudly, and these are also other people saying, especially also from overseas, because they recognize and they want to work with us from NASA, from Russia, from China, from Japan, because at the moment Europe is leading and has established the world's best space-based system to monitor the pulse of our planet. The next slide would show some of these, if it comes, some of these applications, what Copernicus can do and where it can contribute. And you have seen 99 examples in this booklet here, and they're all covering various policy domains, and some of them are listed here, but there are many, many more. Some extremely important ones are dealing with regional development, with land monitoring, with agriculture, food security, with the oceans, with pollution. And if we click once more, you will see some of these examples in pictures. There was okay, this was Mr. President Macron speaking at the US Congress in April this year. And in fact, if you probably go back once more, you see that he was underlining the importance of climate change, that we need to preserve our climate with all means. Space is one means of doing it. He was promoting the Paris Agreement, and of course, we all know how this ended across the Atlantic, but he was certainly underlining the importance of of putting our energies together, because there is no planet B. We are monitoring planet A, we are living on planet A, there is no planet B, and therefore we need to take good care of it. What is shown here on this example is one of these elements that are constantly monitored. This is air pollution. You see on the red spots areas that are more polluted than other colors. And this image we get every day. We get this from one of our Copernicus Sentinels called Sentinel 5B, which is providing global measurements of air pollution of the most important gases, greenhouse gases, which are connected to pollution caused by mankind. The next slide would show, yes, this is showing that pollution, of course, is an important health factor and is impacting the health of many people. This is showing agriculture, and if you click once more, in fact, the different colors are showing different agricultural crops. This is in the Czech Republic. But what is equally important is that this method has been taken up by the European Commission. In fact, Commissioner Hogan was really using these examples and these results to change the common agricultural policy. And as of next year, the Sentinels or space data can be used to verify the claims of farmers which are made on a regular basis, and therefore you can really have a benefit. If you click once more, there's a text box appearing, which is the quote from the press release where Mr. Hogan was actually speaking, just to underline that this is something where our Copernicus program has really entered daily policy making. To the next slide, it summarizes on one page what is Copernicus as a fact sheet. These are the numbers of users, the numbers of terabytes, the full, free and open data policy, which are crucial in order to really have this success, which was also mentioned before by my colleague from the European Commission. And this is a program where we prepare the next phase now, and if you click once more, which will be Copernicus 2.0. We call it 2.0 because now we are operating and running Copernicus 1.0, and we have to prepare the future. And here the European Parliament comes in and has been playing an extremely important role for Copernicus 1.0, but also now in the preparation of Copernicus 2.0 through the EU regulation, which is currently being debated. It was adopted yesterday in the ITRE committee, and we are really grateful for the support of Parliament, but also the Space Working Party in order to organize the support on the side of the European Union to fund the next phase of the program. I should probably mention that this is a co-funded program. It's not only funded by EU budget, but also by budgets from the ESA member states. And our ESA member states today contribute about 37% of the space component. And we are also preparing, putting a proposal forward for next year for our conference at ministerial level to ask our member states to also co-fund together with the European Union the Copernicus phase in the next from 2019-2020 onwards, and in order to have a program that goes hand in hand. So our member states are almost the same, or largely overlapping. They're working on both sides to make Copernicus a success, and I think together we can really achieve great things in Europe, and I'd like to thank you with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. And while you're joining your seat back, I think we have a few minutes to debate and to collect a number, at least a couple of impulse statements. And before collecting them, let's just revise a few important concepts that will just come throughout our discussion later on. Of course, the paradigm shift that Andreas mentioned, the previous publication, I'd like to recall it, was from 2012. What a change from then to here. And then, of course, challenges, world challenges, local, regional responses, tech revolutions, data and access to data. All these efforts, individual effort and even more collective efforts. And then a concept that will come back, and we hope back again, is EU leadership. EU leadership with the contribution of the different institutions, the different levels of governments, and right now we'll see from the European Parliament, and also this contribution to humanity. I think this is something that we should keep in mind, not just for tonight, this evening discussion, but later on for the development that will come later. European Parliament, we heard about the important contribution, the great role, the necessary role, and we have the opportunity here this evening to have a number of important MEPs. So I'd like to address you, well, at least a request. Would you like to share a couple of statements with us, starting maybe with Member of Parliament John Howard? Of course, we have a number of questions for you. Where is John Howard? Is he in the room? Not yet. Or maybe Davor Šrek, is he here? You are from Croatia, and it would be interesting to understand, first of all, the role of the European Parliament, also regarding the regulations, and then from your own perspective, from ITRE committee, what is your idea about Copernicus, about Earth applications, and about the role of the Parliament altogether? Thank you so much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very exciting event tonight in the European Parliament, and I'm really delighted to be present at this event of the release of this publication about 99 success stories from local and regional authorities across Europe. I would like to thank Nereos, European Commission, and the European Space Agency for this valuable initiative of showcasing short stories how Copernicus data help European, local, and regional authorities address technical challenges. We know that that MEPs are in the close contact with the citizens, so we really have the dialogue with them. And in my dialogues with the citizens, when I speak about the space program, I often confront them with incomprehension of the usage of utilities of EU space programs components, in general, by Copernicus in particular. What are those data? What are they used for? So I often give examples of how data collected by Copernicus affect their daily life through applications they might use, and they even don't realize the space program, something very abstract in their mind, the Copernicus is behind it. So I discovered the 99+1 application, and it's not linked to something which is environmental or climate, because I'm a green MEP here, or energy, or environmental protection, wildlife. So I discovered, for instance, if you're a surfer, you might know a special free application called MeteoSurf. It uses data from Copernicus to provide surfers with information of sea conditions in the Mediterranean Sea. Once you select a surfing spot, MeteoSurf produces a table with the forecast for wave height, wave direction, wind speed, and wind direction, and you can enjoy in surfing. Quite useful and concrete information for a surfer. You will not find on the Google Play or store, so it's a desktop application, but it's still very useful if you want to plan a nice day in the future. Of course, come back to the legislation work. As the shadow rapporteur for the regulation of establishing the space program of the Union and the EU Agency for the Space Program, I was one of the negotiators in the Parliament's team. As this report was adopted precisely yesterday in the ITRE committee by a larger majority, I am pleased to say that through the compromise amendment, we had an agreement among all political groups that geoinformation data and services provided by the Copernicus must be based on not only pursue a free and open data policy, which is very important. Also, it is Parliament's position that the budget for the Copernicus should be increased by 0.2 billion euros within the financial envelope for the implementation of the program for the period 21-27. I think that's good news. In more general terms, and to conclude, space technology, data and services have become indispensable in the daily lives of EU citizens and play an essential role in preserving many strategic interests. Thus, the collection of Copernicus user stories is an excellent means of demonstrating the practical example of usage of Copernicus services, and I suppose that citizens will accept this publication very well. I thank you for your attention and looking forward to hearing from new user experiences. Thank you very much.
Much for your enriching words. Now, we still have a few minutes for at least another impulse statement. While we wait for a voluntary MEP, I'd like to recall that this event is wine-streamed. I'm sure you have discovered it already. And I'd like also to remind you that we might use social networks. The addresses are there. You already know them, because the most important thing to do, to remember, is the hashtag. Of course, Copernicus4Regions, let's remember it this evening, tomorrow, and forever, because it's very powerful. Remember that Twitter accounts are those of the co-organizer, namely Nereus, namely ESA, and namely Copernicus EU. I'm sure you have discovered them already, but I think it was important just to share these details. So, do we have another volunteer for another question or a statement that you would like to share? We have some more minutes. Just one. Yes? Now or later? Yeah? No? Yes, you can do it now and later. Now and later. Please join. Please.
Hi, and I'm Claire Moody, MEP, and I had the pleasure to be in the ITRA committee yesterday morning to be voting in support of the development of the space policy, and indeed in support of this programme. I have to say I am a dedicated fan of Copernicus, to the extent that I have even been to see the satellite launches of one of the Sentinel satellites, which was both a privilege and a very exciting moment for me. I think, I just want to underline, in all honesty, what has already been said, which is, the importance of this programme to the citizens that, as parliamentarians, we are sent here to represent. Because if you look at the big issues that we are now we have to face up to, and we have to respond to, then you are looking at the exact issues that Copernicus is dealing with. Climate change is something that we must respond to, and we must respond to effectively. But to do so, we need the tools. And there cannot be a better tool for us than is represented by Copernicus. And indeed, I meant to bring up the book. I'm now going to reach across and pluck this out. But if you look at the resources that we need to manage better, you look at, for example, the land use, or you look at our maritime arena, or you look at all of the other areas that Copernicus is actually already working on, then you are looking at the way we can change and reshape our future in a way that is responsible administration of this precious world that we are responsible for. And the other side of that is, again, not, these issues that we must deal with, but also the technological revolutions that we have coming at us as well. And again, Copernicus represents the developments and the way that we can further move on, in AI being one example, but also looking at the data generation. But again, this really, really important point is you can collect as much data as you like, but if you don't put it into a format that anyone can usefully access it, then it's utterly pointless and meaningless. And again, the use of the actual accessibility of the Copernicus data is vital for us as well. So I may well have things to say later too, so be prepared for me popping up again. But I just wanted, I'm very happy to have this chance at the beginning to say thank you. Thank you for the book, because thank you for showing us what is being delivered. And thank you for what you are going to elaborate on over the rest of this event so we can learn more about how Copernicus has delivered for us and what more it's going to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you so much indeed. You're most welcome to join later and later again. In fact, also thank you for introducing two concepts that haven't had mentioned earlier on, the one of responsibility and the one of not just collecting data, but what do you do with the data? And this is something that, of course, will go back in the debate. But the concept of responsibility and accountability will come back and come back again. So now we are ready to start the practical, the concrete phase of this conference. So we will reach out the user, the final users. And before doing that, let's recap a little bit some of the important aspects that have been mentioned in these very important introductions. Well, first of all, regions. Regions can shape the Earth observation market. So Copernicus, as Claire has just said, has become a tool. It's not just there in the air, something not tangible. It's something useful. So we have had a paradigm shift. And regions in this paradigm shift are shaping the Earth observation market. So some solutions are there at local level, and these solutions can face these societal challenges. How? And we will hear this very shortly, through a co-creation process. Then innovation, something that was mentioned by Isa. The technologies, these revolutions, and these new technologies, they need, of course, an integration into the public administrations, and very soon we will hear how. Sometimes there have been also barriers, but most of the times the solutions have been found between public administrations and the service providers. Coming back to what Andreas and Isa said, the need of integration and customization, also the need to find solutions that can evolve. And then something very important that you, Andreas, mentioned, the aspect of free and open data policy. This is something that across all experiences has been underlined as a very important, almost necessary tool. And also the long-term availability of Copernicus data. And finally, Copernicus not just as a single experiment, but as an ecosystem, a result that lies on a collaborative joint effort, a joint effort between institutions and the market, a joint effort between the different levels of government, as we heard from Claire earlier on and the colleagues, a program that lies on a collaborative efforts across sectors, across disciplines, and across policy domains. All of this, it's here. It's amazing. I spent 2 evenings reading it all, and really, at some point, I had tears in my eyes. It's really impressive. And so here we will move now and reach out to the real users. Each of your table has a symbol. You will have a bear trying to survive from an iceberg. You'll have a kind of lorry in the forest. You have different symbols, and these symbols represent the sectors in which all this has been. These applications have been applied at the local level. So these portraits that are like you to touch, to follow with us now, is like a co-creation process, and portrays a mosaics of relations that we will discover together. So let's move to the first table, and I'd like to find out our Irish friends. Thanks, that will help. Thank you so much. We'll try to move across the tables. and we'll move to this table. Why this table? Because there is a bear trying to survive, but indeed we are moving to Ireland. We are moving to Galway, where a great experiment has been applied by monitoring groundwater flooding in Ireland through Copernicus applications. In this case, we have two representatives, one from Galway County Council, so from the local authority, and the other, Cohen, from the Geological Survey Ireland. Therefore, he is a service provider. Can we say so? So the first question to you, actually the question for you, is what was the challenge back in Galway, and how did you solve it together? And also, who started first? Was it the provider, was the authority, was the minister? You have the microphone. Thank you, Enda. Enda Gallagher.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks very much for the introduction. I am from Galway County Council, which is a local authority on the west coast of Ireland. 2 years ago, in December 2016, I was appointed as project manager for a flood scheme in the Cork Lowlands area of our county. The Cork Lowlands suffers from groundwater flooding. Groundwater flooding occurs when intense or prolonged rainfall floods underground river networks, and the water surfaces and starts to find new floodplains along the surface of the terrain. It's unlike river flooding, where usually the floodings are confined to close to existing river banks, in that when we have groundwater flooding, we can cover a vast area. In Gort, it's actually about 250 square kilometres of lands that are in the study area. We've had 6 of these major flooding events in the last 30 years. The most recent events were in 2009 and 2015. Traditionally, groundwater flooding has been a low priority with our government. There are 2 main reasons for this. The groundwater floods rise very slowly, so there's very little danger to life. The second reason for the low priority was it usually happens in rural areas that are sparsely populated. Even though we could have 30 or 40 houses affected in a flood event, they can be maybe 5 or 10 kilometres apart, and they won't realise themselves that they are caught up in the same event. No funding had been provided historically to us to track these floods, to determine the flood paths or the extents of the flooding. Our responses during flooding events are usually limited to providing sandbags and pumps to households that are being affected, closing roads and detouring traffic, and finding alternative accommodation for people that have been flooded out of their houses. We've had the last 2 events in 2009 and 2015. They were 2 massive events, so they were in close proximity, and they really tested the resolve of our local communities in the area. Many people in the farming community have started to query whether it's actually viable to continue farming in the region. When we've got lands underwater for periods of 4 to 6 months, it completely kills off all the vegetation on the lands, and the lands can take 2 to 3 years to recover again. And in the case of the event in 2009, it meant that our farmers were out of action for maybe 3 years, and then they had 3 years farming, and then they got flooded again, and they were back to square one. Some of the other issues that we had with the locals are where houses are flooded twice in that period, and householders have now queried whether it's worth them going back and repairing their houses again, or are they going to get hit again in the very near future. One of the last major issues was the stress that was associated with the flood events, something that we don't always appreciate when we are looking at hard cold figures. After the 2015 event, locals put a lot of pressure on our political system, and it was decided that a flood plan would be developed for the Cork Lowlands area. I was brought in as the project manager in 2016. suppose, to find a solution to the problem, we have to find out what exactly is the issue. What is the extent of the floods that we have? Where are the flow paths? And what volumes of water are we looking to get from the Gort lowlands to the sea? This is a real issue for us when we're looking at a 250 square kilometre area with 50 separate flow basins. This is where we needed access to Copernicus and Sentinel-1 information, and we turned to GSI to assist us with that.
Thanks, Enda. I might stand up. I'm Cúlra Bruggan. I'm Director of the Geological Survey of Ireland. And as Enda explained, this was quite a difficult problem and became quite a big political issue. And it was actually included in our new government's programme as one of their actions underneath the climate action area, that they would actually provide this information. So the task was given to us because we work with groundwater, but we normally work with groundwater in terms of groundwater pollution, groundwater quality, or water supply. In this case, what we had to do was we took that understanding and the modelling we were already doing, and we put together a project team, and my colleagues are here, Owen Loughlin and Ted McCormick. So people who had expertise in modelling, and then also had expertise in the engineering side of it. But being put in place, the team after the extent of the flooding, we needed to actually, we could put loggers into the lakes, and we could get data from now going forward. But we had to be able to look back and see what was the maximum extent of this flooding. How had these lakes behaved? This is groundwater flooding. Each of these can behave quite differently. They can be connected or not connected. And this was where the Sentinel data became absolutely critical. It provided us with an archive going back to the end of 2014. We were able to catalogue the lakes. We were able to check it against the data we were acquiring now. And critically in Ireland, the synthetic aperture radar data, the SAR data, can see through the clouds, because if you've been to Ireland, it rains a bit. So it can see through the clouds, and it's day and night. It's 365 days a year. The return period is every 3 or 4 days. So this isn't like the satellite data we used to know. This is a different animal. This is a different quality of data. And allowed us to develop models and to work with the local authority and provide an understanding of how these lakes are behaving and how this flooding is occurring, how long these events might take, and then to work on what the solutions might be. Just in closing, just three critical points. One is the free and open access of the data is absolutely critical. Otherwise, we could not do this. We've seen this with Landsat data in years gone by being available and not available. It's absolutely critical. It's a policy our own geological survey follow, all our data free and online, and it needs to be completely supported. The second thing is, interestingly, the data we're now producing and the maps we will produce, the extent maps, will actually be used to also meet our requirements under the EU Floods Directive. So it's quite a neat closure of a circle that the European Space Agency data is allowing us to meet our requirements under the Floods Directive. And then the last thing is the citizen, which has been mentioned before. Interestingly, when dealing with the citizens, the fact that we could go to them and show them the kind of things we were doing, the latest technology, the latest available data, gave them the confidence that we were actually responding to the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Enda and Cohen. Before moving to our next speaker, let me just ask you, was it demanding to get along between the service provider and the public authority?
I suppose we just discussed this earlier on ourselves. One of the key issues that we had was that the political will was in place at the time to find a solution to the problem that was being experienced in the Gort area. So we were driven by our political masters to come together and
Okay,
combine.
so the minister did that.
Exactly.
Okay, in that case it was definitely easy. Okay, thank you so much. Fascinating. So we are now moving from the bigger Isle of Ireland to a group of smaller and important islands. We're moving to Portugal, we're moving to Azores. Frederico Cardigos, you have a different experience in a different field of great importance. Your experiment was to build the Azores Regional Forest Inventory. Why now with this tool, and how did you manage before? Thanks.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Nereus, the European Commission, and ESA and of course to our MEPs present in the room, and especially to Mr. Serrão Santos, the host, and Zorin as me. And first of all, I would like to explain what are the Azores. The Azores are 9 islands in the Northeast Atlantic. They are quite small, but they are beautiful. And as they are beautiful, they also have beautiful forests. They are one autonomous region of Portugal and one autonomous region of the European Union. And this explains why I'm here, because we are far away from Central Europe, and actually the people that have built this project are not present in the room, so I'm the representative of the Azores here in Brussels, and that's why I'm speaking to you. So I'll try to do my best. The Azores, as they are beautiful, they have to conserve and preserve their forests, and you have some images in your screens now. We have to preserve our forests, and to do that, of course, we have to know what is in there. And the Azorean government made a big effort to build the Azorean regional forest inventory. And in the past, we have done this using aerial images, and of course, making the interpretation of those aerial images. But it's very expensive to have aerial images, to have the planes to fly around the islands. And then it takes a long time to really understand what is in the images and produce the maps. So the last maps that we had in the Azores were from 2007, a long time ago. And at a certain point when these Copernicus satellites became available, immediately the regional government tried to link with the scientists there in the Azores for them to give solutions to this problem using the new tools that were available. And immediately they start working, especially those 2 teams, the CE3C and the Azorean Biodiversity Group, both from the University of the Azores. They start working together with the government of the Azores and producing some solutions. And actually, the solutions that were previously available, they had an accuracy of 1 hectare, so 100 meters by 100 meters. When they start working with the space-based solutions, so using satellites, they had immediately resolutions of 10 meters per 10 meters. So immediately the results were visible. And using those first images, we were using the multispectral Sentinel-2. And afterwards we start using also Sentinel-1 because it has radar, and as it was mentioned here before, it was possible to pass through the clouds. As Ireland, we also have a bit of rain in the Azores. Not so much. So actually nowadays we are able to have more or less 1 image per month. So we shift from 1 map every 10 years to 1 image per month. So it's completely different. And at this point, with the tools that we already have been able to develop, we have a very accurate map of the Azorean forest, and we are able to detect monthly changes in that forest. And those changes can be a cut that exists in the forest, or if there is a drought, immediately we can see that something is happening. Because in the 3rd vector that we are developing as we speak, we are able to detect the greenness and the moisture in the forest. And so it's possible to see really what are the conditions of the forest. But we are able to go even further, because with these new tools, we are able to see where are some of the invasive species of the Azores. And this is a true problem, because the Azores, as a young volcanic archipelago, doesn't have many local species, and so it's very easy to invade the environment. And using the satellites, actually, we are able to see where are the invasive spots and then to act on them, especially when we are talking about woody species. For the non-woody species, it's not so easy to do that, so we are not there yet. But for the woody species, we are getting very, very good information. And one of the things that these teams were able to develop is that the maps are not constrained inside the government or the research teams. Using a tool that it's called the Google Earth engine, it's possible to have these maps available to the general community and even some instruments to process those images. And we hope that with the development of DIAS, the Data Information Access Services, will be possible to be developed and used completely using European tools. That will be, of course, for the future. For now, what we are doing, and it's being also constructed as we speak, is a model for to develop a model not just for forest, but also for agriculture. And so it will be possible to pass just from the forest area to the agriculture, and then to respond to the challenge that Mr. Hogan has pushed forward to really make the monitoring of forest and agriculture using Copernicus satellites. And also we are doing at the same time some tools to make the spatial planning for the other terrestrial areas, and that will be the next steps that we are going to do in the Azores. Thank you.
Federico, thank you very much for your comments, for sharing your great experience, also for telling us who is in charge of all this, so university, the different actors. I think with these two first case studies, we have enough material for thought to stimulate a first debate. That's why we're here, right? To exchange experiences, to debate, to discuss. So who would like to be the icebreaker? I recall Enda Gallagher from Galway, Cohen Verbruggen, who is the service provider, Federico Gardigos, who has just shared this experience in different sectors. So we have two different member states, two different regions, two different sectors. Now to help you out also, we saw evocative images, we saw data, we saw the reference to the Sentinel. You can follow the case studies on the book. Galway is at page 174 and Azores 102. Come on, let's break the ice. Who would like? Is there a volunteer? For instance, the first question that comes to my mind is, Federico, how did you manage before? And to the friends from Galway, how did you manage before Copernicus application?
First me?
Sure.
Okay. First, we did it in a very expensive way because, as I said, we were using images collected by airplanes, and those images have to then be checked with work in the field. So the islands are quite different. For you to have an idea, the biggest island of the Azores has 120,000 persons, and the smallest has 400 persons. So they are quite different, and the geological universe of the Azores is really complex. So it was really difficult because then all the images that were collected by the planes have to be checked in the field, at least for the large areas. And in the end, as after this expensive and time-consuming process, we had images with an accuracy of 100 meters by 100 meters, 1 hectare. It was useful. Everyone was using it, besides the government, also the university and the local authorities was using it. But nowadays, with Copernicus, it really explodes.
So quality and for free.
Almost for free.
Thank you, Federico. Any question? Shall I pick it up? Oh, yes, we have 1 and 2. Yes, I think.
I'm Xenophon Silibaris from Greece. I would like to ask my Irish colleagues, did you have any idea about Copernicus before you address yourself to IGS, or it was left entirely for them to decide?
I'd honestly never heard of it, to be honest with you. To be even more blatantly honest, I'd hardly ever heard of GSI. So, yeah. That is.
Yeah, no, and we've used satellite data, so as I mentioned, and we've actually used, been in ESA projects like Terra Firma and Pangeo on subsidence, which were really great experiences. So we were experienced with that. But in terms of the question about what did we do before, it was anecdotal data, anecdotal evidence, and spot measurements. So you did not have a full sequence. You didn't have the 3-day, 4-day measurements. So you overestimated in some cases. You underestimated. You actually missed flood events. So it just isn't comparable, and you couldn't base responses on that kind of patchy data.
Yes. I'd like also to thank Cohen because he mentioned EU directives earlier on. And we'd like to recall, for those that haven't read the book yet, that this publication addresses 9 EU directives. One of the aspects that comes out quite clearly is how region and local authorities, how regions, have been able to drive the market, and I think this is quite significant. But there was another question there. I don't know if was it Alessandro from Mesa? No, not for you. I think that we can move on to another table, or maybe as the Greek colleagues intervene, we can stick to this table. You don't have white bears in Greece, but I'm sure you still have some brown ones. But I think you will now share another aspect. So far we faced the groundwater, and with Azores the forestry. What about? Can I move here so I can see you? Yeah. So we are now moving to Greece. We are moving to Epirus and Western Macedonia. Yes, I'm switching. I know I'm switching because I can't see where Kaupo is. Okay, so I'll come back with you later. Sorry, I didn't see you. That's why I stick to this table. Yes, we are in Greece. We are in your region, in your administration of Epirus and Western Macedonia. Serafin Psilis, you have been promoting this amazing project on monitoring coastal waters in near real time. So we would like to understand why. What you mean with this, and how did you work instead with Planeta Kela, so with Stelios Bolanos, who has been your service provider? Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening to all. The Water Framework Directive and the Marine Strategy Directive set specific budgets also for the monitoring of the marine coastal waters regarding the eutrophication risk. Eutrophication is an important risk for the society and the economy due to aquaculture and tourism activity in our region. 15% of the national Greek aquaculture production comes from our area, northern and western Greece. Thesprotia is the name. The Greek legal framework integrates the water and the marine strategy directives with the law 3199 of year 2003 and other legal acts, of course. The Water Directorate and the responsible authority to implement the law and has the obligation to monitor the marine waters in the Ionian Sea. Being a region that is neighbor with another country, Albania, the problem is more complex as the monitoring has to be done in common from responsible authorities of both countries. In the context and with the opportunity of the financial mechanism Indirect Greece-Albania, that aims to fund collaborative projects, we came up with the idea together with our Albanian counterparts to exploit the potentialities of satellite Earth observation. This would give us the needed information in the needed time, near real time, for both of us. Stelios, Mr. Bolanos, give you more details of the technical solution that we implemented.
Thank you, Serafin. I understand. I feel more comfortable. I'm the director of Planeta Kelas. Some of you know me with a different hat. Today I represent the service provider that we work together with Serafin in this very interesting for us activity, the so-called SIMO, which stands for Satellite Integrated Monitoring Network for the eutrophication risk. So we built in the framework of this project that was led by the Water Directorate of the Decentralized Administration system that gives the opportunity to the Water Directorate to monitor in near real time the marine waters of the Thesprotia area, specifically in order to count the risk of eutrophication in this marine area. So we are monitoring related parameters such as chlorophyll A, water transparency, and temperature that are the connected parameter with this environmental aspect. So as the decision makers of the region to have information and design and implement relative, of course, policies. We used in this activity, we based our service in our platform that we named Reticus. Maybe you know that Reticus was the only student of, was an historic person, and was the only student of Copernicus, the old one. And of course, as the only student, he was the only, of course, and biggest promoter of Copernicus work. So in this way, we in Planet are also targeting to share the knowledge and all the information, all the benefits that Copernicus can bring to society all around the globe. It is important to mention that on my left stands also, he's here today, apart from Mr. Tsipeli Serafim, also the head of the decentralized administration, Mr. Michalakis, showing in this way the strong support that this authority, that is an important authority within the Greek administration, the decentralized administration are, so to say, the hand of the central government at the regional level. There are 7 decentralized authorities. Greece is divided in 7 decentralized authorities and 13 regions. So every decentralized authority has 2 regional with elected chairman. And it is important, and I like also to thank him for being here and showing this support. One last comment, one last issue I'd like to raise, point I'd like to raise is the fact that we wouldn't have been here in this position as a service provider if it weren't for the preparatory actions that have taken place before this day from the European Space Agency. We were part of activities since 2005 called MarCost 1, MarCost 2, that were activities that helped us Planetech and helped, and there are many other activities as MarCost, help the European industry to come to the needed level of expectation in order to meet this demand from real users today of space-based information. And with this, I'd like to thank very much again the organizers for this joyful event, because this is a joyful event. We're not trying to sell something, or this. We came all here together to celebrate this excellent publication that covers, I very well heard and very much like the fact that our 9 European directives that are covered with these 99 application and case studies, use cases, and with this I'd like to thank you very much.
Stelios and Serafim, thank you so much for your experience. Also, thank you for recalling that this exercise is not just an exercise within the European Union. Serafim mentioned Albania, but there are many other examples that you can recognize from the book that covers also other areas outside the European Union. So this is already important also to recall the first invitation of thinking outside the European Union area. And also thanks to Celius for recalling that this contribution to humanity can also be done by bringing together this humanistic origin of Europe and build it up with technology. And in fact, many of the examples in the book that are showcases here have also to do with the cultural heritage. Let's now move to another area of Europe. We move to the north of Europe. We move to Tartu, Estonia. Sorry for skipping you earlier on. I couldn't see you. Kaupo Formanski will share with us their experiment, their case study on agricultural subsidies. So how Copernicus applications have been helping you to verify agricultural subsidies. Thanks, Kaupo.
Thank you. I am Kaupo Voormansik from Estonia. In the beginning of the development, I represented Tartu Observatory and University of Tartu. Now I'm representing our spin-off company, Capacita. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to talk with you tonight. I was told to be not very technical, but coming from Estonia, I have to talk about technology a bit. We don't have very many people in Estonia, and we have to use our human resources very wisely. And sending out hundreds of people on the fields to work as inspectors is not the best use of our people. When possible, we try to substitute it with automated info systems. It was back in 2011 when we started our applied research cooperation with the Estonian Paying Agency. And finally, this year, European Commission passed a regulation change, which starts to gradually reduce the field checks and increase the satellite monitoring. When reading these latest documents by the Joint Research Center, how they envision how the monitoring approach should work, then my impression is that at least 7 years of hard work lies ahead, because in order the paying agencies to really adapt to the satellite monitoring and substitute the field visits. Really the change, what I can see from this regulation change at European Union level is really massive, both for the agencies and also for the service developers. But okay, what are we doing? Simply put, we are checking agricultural subsidies from the satellites. And we started from the mowing detection just because it's the highest impact use case in Northern Europe, which is often violated. So depending on the ecological type of the grasslands, there are certain periods when mowing is prohibited. Yet most of the grasslands you have to mow at least once a year to maintain it. And using Copernicus imagery time series, we detect the sharp decline in biomass, which indicate the mowing events. And the mowing status of the fields is shown in a public web map to the farmers as a reminder and a prophylactic tool, and also to the paying agency to detect non-compliances. Sounds simple, isn't it? Actually, there are two challenges. First is the communication challenge, avoiding Orwell's 1984 future is a big brother watching you. And the second is the technical challenge. In order to provide the service, the data supply and the processing has to be seamless. So we are working hard to show the farmers that they have equal access to the data about their fields, and they could see from the satellites just as much as the paying agency can see. And there is no secret following and the whole system is transparent and open. It's there to help to apply the agricultural policy of Europe and not to punish. And yet a lot of communication work needs to be done to reach it. And from the technical side, yes, already this year the system helped to find 77 non-compliances in Estonia and reduced the number of false payments. And the paying agency uses it to plan the inspectors' work more finely, to send them to the right place. But the service is not seamless and real-time yet. The Sentinel data format changed this year. The information about didn't came us on time, and it was not supported in software, so it caused a delay in the processing. Then there were a series of data products corrupted, which were reprocessed. And then we had to reprocess our time series, which again caused delays. So from looking from the distance, people would like to have, oh, it's an operational full service, but it's actually hard work to have it in real time. And in this process, we can only praise ESA staff, who has always been very helpful and proactive. Making such a massive data factory work smoothly is not an easy task. And I would say that agricultural checks use case is maybe one of the most demanding ones, because it requires the complete time series and it has to be error-free. Thank you. Some remarks more. So to conclude, we look hopeful to the future. We add new checks to the functionality. We work to get the accuracies up and processing to real time, and ultimately reduce the manual labor in boring tasks like inspecting the fields. Thank you for listening. I am open for your questions and discussion. Thanks.
Capo, thank you so much also for being so open about the challenges. So you understood that the bottle was open for you, right? Yes, indeed, this is a very demanding field. We understand also, we know about agricultural subsidies, and this is one sector that is common to most European regions. As well as the next one that we will be covering soon, civil protection, because every single region in Europe is helped by its civil protections. But before doing so, I think we have loads of material for thought. I think this is a great slot to maybe collect a couple of questions. The Greece and the Estonian experience have been almost complementary, different challenges, somehow similar responses. But anyways, I think you both gave inputs that maybe we would like to comment, because our great interest and are important for all our local authorities and regions. Who would like to be the icebreaker? Maybe Marco, as he's talking there. Yes? Would you like to intervene? No? Why don't you share it with us, Marco?
Good evening. I work for Indra.
Introduce yourself.
Yes, I work for Indra in Brussels, which is an IT company in Spain. We work with satellites, of course, and we provide images to the ESA. I would like to ask you, what kind of problems? I mean, what is the problem? Is related to what people have to declare to the authorities according to what they are cultivating? I mean, we were talking about this because my colleague here was working on that. Is it related to that? I mean, the farmers.
Yeah, I don't know how familiar. Sorry, I don't know how familiar you are with CAP, Common Agricultural Policy.
We are familiar.
Yeah. So there is a series of regulations to keep the agricultural land in a good shape, and the depending on the subsidies the farmer applies, he also has to do certain actions in the fields. And so far it has been relied on the so-called 5% on-the-spot checks, which is getting more and more expensive every year. And still you cannot cover everything. And so the vision is to just to replace it with satellite data.
Yeah, okay. Instead of having inspectors going around.
Exactly. Yeah, as to illustrate it, in Denmark and Sweden, one field visit costs 1,500 euros. And you can, like 5% of the agricultural area, you can get it up to the millions very quickly. So there is a potential for huge saving.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Can I do so? Thank you, Marco. Is there any other question? Well, think about it, but before doing that, why don't we check with Ilaria, how are we going with social networks coverage, how are we going with the streaming? Can you share it with us?
Thank you, Lorenza. In order to underline the collective effort of this publication, I think it's also important to know that many people could not be here with us tonight. We have people online connected, following on via streaming, and also on Twitter. And I've had the pleasure and the honor to actually support the Politecnico di Milano in all the long, over 1 year procedure of collecting articles and promoting articles. And I would really wish to underline this collaborative and collective effort of this publication. So I think this can never be stressed enough. And I think we all feel that we belong to it and we were part of it. So that's it. This is my pleasure to say that.
Thank you, Dada, for underlining it. In fact, I would also like to invite you to pick up these last two experiences. Please go to page 132 for the Epirus experience, and please check our friend from Estonia at page 58. I think this could help to come up with another question, so as we have some more minutes. No, while you're thinking of the questions, I'm looking for the next table. Civil protection, here you are. Portugal. No, nobody, really. Oh yes, please do so.
It's me again. First, to give an information, and secondly, to ask a question. The information is that I presented this particular project once upon a time here in Brussels to a live meeting. And in that live meeting, immediately people came to me to ask the coordinates of these people in the Azores to start doing the same thing in their own place. So I would invite you to share your stories as far as possible using this book and with other tools, because other partners will arise suddenly from nowhere. And the question is, when I was preparing this presentation, someone phoned me from the Azores saying, oh, you are going to Copernicus meeting, that's very interesting, because we are doing also work with Copernicus system and satellites. So at a certain point, there is a feedback here. Can we decrease the sound? No, okay, I tried. And the thing is, probably in the door next to you, there is other people working also with Copernicus. And the question is, do you feel, the people that has presented, that there are other teams in the field that are not here in the book, but that really shows that Copernicus is being used in a wide range of our society? That's a question.
Thank you, Federico. And before giving you the floor, can we just collect another one? Roya, for instance, doesn't need presentation.
Thank you. I have a question to the different teams that came in couples with the service provider and the public administration. We as Nereus, we work very much with administration to figure out what are the roadblocks and what can we do to overcome them? What can we do to promote Copernicus better in regional administrations? What can we do that training, a better qualification capability in administration takes place? What can we do that administrations are better technically equipped to better access the data? When you think of your individual experiences, what helped you in a way to overcome the administrative obstacles?
Roya, thanks. I think these two questions can be addressed to the 4 case studies so far, not just to the last 2. It is okay for you. So who would like to answer first?
Interesting. One of the things that helped us address the issue was Ted McCormick, who's working on the project, attended a training course in Frascati at ESA on how to handle the data, so to help deal with some of the problems, and was able to talk to the experts there as well. So in terms of the technical side, that was very useful. And then, as my colleague explained, it was up to us then to be able to show we could provide a technical solution, and they don't have to, they have to deal with the engineering side of it and the planning aspects, and we provide the technical input.
Thank you. Who else would like to add?
Yeah, I can comment from the Estonian case a bit. I think there is no magic, but you have to start early. Like we started in 2011 with the first applied research projects. And in our case, we had a group of enthusiasts inside the paying agency who was like very open and free to start to try out the new technology. I don't want to mention the country, but we visited our colleagues in some other European Union country. And talking about that we work with the paying agency freely, and then they were laughing, oh, we cannot even get into the door. Like it's so big bureaucracy and so difficult to reach the people. But maybe here is like smaller countries maybe have a little bit of advantage because the whole structure is lighter. Thank you.
So our Greek colleagues, maybe you'd like to add something.
Well, I would like mostly on the question raised by the Azores on the point. Well, I'm absolutely more than sure that there are many more users that have experience in Copernicus. It happens for me to have been the national representative of Greece in the Copernicus User Forum. So these are case stories from what I read that are mostly provided by the downstream service industry to users, but it's a huge amount of users of the core services, and the core services provided by the entrusted entities, by Mercator, by ECMWF, by the European, by EEA, and the other ones are having a huge impact in society, and many users. The first one that comes to my mind is all the users of the emergency service that has had a huge success throughout Europe, and not only. So I am sure that there are many users and many use cases that are not reported in this one, because it's a different way of presenting it, but absolutely there are, and there are many, and in various sectors and cases.
Thank you for sharing all this. I think we're done for the questions, and we can move to the next and last and complex case studies. We go back to Portugal. This time we go back to the Coimbra region. This is a complex case study, not just because the challenge... Yes, this is a complex and inspiring case study, not just for the content, but also for the methodology. Because in your case, you bring together a number of municipalities through an inter-municipality approach. How interesting. And also because in your case, the challenge is not a unique challenge, but is a multiple challenge as you approach Copernicus to help civil protection. As we know, civil protection faces a number of challenges. We would like to start with Pedro. We would like you to start the introduction. Thank you so much. And Pedro Garriga. Yes, no, go ahead. Pedro Garriga.
It's difficult to say. I would like to thank the Nereus and ESA and the European Commission and I would like to thank ESA and the European Commission for the opportunity to be here. Also thank European Commission and ESA to allow having this Copernicus data available for all of us and hopefully still going on for a long time. For us it was a big challenge because we are facing a lot of challenges in the country. We have a heterogeneity of the territory. You can go from coastal erosion to fires, which decimated nearly 100% last year, to floods, to air pollution in cities and in the territory. So we developed a platform that aggregates data, Earth observation data, in situ data, and artificial intelligence to provide a tool for these inter-municipality communities to help in the everyday civil protection so we can minimize the economical and the social problems that they have during the lifetime. Not only in near real time, but also to take proactive measurements in the future so they can minimize additional particularities. Just to say that we are aggregating Sentinel data imagery, Sentinel-1 and 2 for forest orientation, for the flood analysis, which is common for all the platforms here that we are looking. But also I'm a Copernicus Academy member, and that is one reason that we are teaching the public sector how to use and how the data is giving them a lot of help in the solution. So what we are doing, we are using all the Copernicus services available, ranging from emergency when it's deployed, marine for the coastal erosion analysis, for water temperature. We are using air pollution from camps to provide a tool to help people avoiding hotspots of pollution, and marine and land. So we are using all the services that are aggregated with also radar imagery and services that come from Portugal, service public sector, fire index. All these services are put in the platform so they can do a daily analysis of the problem that they have. But I don't speak here all night about technology, but it's more important to have the people that are using it to speak a little bit. So I pass to
Nuno.
Thank you. First of all, we would like to thank the European Commission and the European Parliament and the ACE and the Space Agency for being here. Quiver region and Viseu region are two regions in the center of Portugal with 23 municipalities and over than 700,000 inhabitants. Our territory is very diverse since it goes from Atlantic coast to the highest mountains in Portugal and is crossed by the longest national rivers. Supporting the emergency management system is an intermunicipal platform which aims to aggregate in the single platform a set of information and data that was until now disaggregated in several entities, such as Portugal Institute of Sea and Atmosphere, Portuguese Environment Agency, National Civil Protections, among others. This is a powerful tool since it allows the monitoring on forest fire risk, floods, extreme weather events, sea distance, road accidents due to the weather conditions, and natural radioactivity. As a result of climate changes, these risks are increasing in Portugal and especially in our regions, as shown by the last forest fires or recently by the recent hurricane. This platform serves as a support to the technicians of our regions who are now able to visualize in real time all the relevant data for the decision making at an operational level, like meteorological and hydrometric data. All municipalities of our regions have now access to data and information in a single system. It is now being used by over than 140 users among municipal and national protection service, national police, fire departments, and other emergency entities. The system is operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It collects data from the monitoring stations and systems installed throughout the territory and integrates them into a geo-reference platform. The main goal is to provide all actors involved in civil protections with the maximum data and information in order to provide them to allow the best decisions at any time. It is also innovative because it is a complete interoperable platform between institutions. The platform was very well received by the different entities, and they are committed to using it and developing it. Please notice that this platform was fully developed in an open databases, which allows its continuous improvement. For us, it's a very good example of cooperation between local and national administrations, national civil protection, research and innovation, and university-based companies. However, we intend to do more. We intend to continue to innovate in order to have a better civil protection, as my colleague will try to explain.
Hello, I'm André Mota. I'm responsible for some of the projects related with civil protection on the intermunicipal community Visão Boa Fonte. Following the statement made by you from the city of Coimbra, where we have talked about the work carried out until now, it is up to me to talk about the projects that are being currently developed by our intermunicipal communities and that use the platforms and satellite images as a reference. In this sense, considering that we live in regions where the probability of having a large forest fire, as we had last year, is high, and in order to facilitate and decrease the risk and the time needed to detect the fire and to activate the means necessary to fight the fire at an early stage, we are now preparing a project with the objective of installing video surveillance systems and automatic detection of forest fires, covering an effective area of more than 85% of our territory. This project is being developed jointly by the two intermunicipal communities in order to try to optimize the equipment distribution, increasing the covered area and reduce the cost of the investment. In addition, it will also use the current platforms and the satellite images as a base. So, all this to say that everything we achieved until now, or everything we have done until now, does not end here. We are only building the basis to all the projects we intend to continue to develop, always with the premises of increasing the resilience of our regions and reducing the consequences of the several natural and technological disasters that certainly will occur in our regions, using some of the tools provided by Copernicus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Definitely the complexity and your commitment came out quite clearly. I'm sure we have at least one question from the public on civil protection that is so important in each of our region. In mine, for instance, it acts every day. I'm from Emilia-Romagna. We had the most important economic earthquake, and or we have flooding every year. We really have to count on our civil protections, and they are great, and not just in my region, but they act globally, and they go and help other regions across Europe, but especially in third countries. What about yours? While you think about it, I'm sure we have a couple of comments or a couple of statements from our MEPs before they go. Who would like to react and come up with another input statement? Ricardo, Claire.
No, I think it's not the best moment. It's the only thing that separates us from the cocktail, so it's difficult. But no, this all proves that this is a very active community. And what we have reached, in fact, with Copernicus and Nereus, and now our regions are using Copernicus to manage the resources, even to control, in the case of the common agriculture fisheries, to control incentives on the agriculture. That's a real, very important tool. And this is a success for Europe. And my wish is that we continue giving support to this big initiative, to the European Space Agency, to Copernicus, to our regions, and that we try to find also an external dimension of all this. I see that you mentioned Africa there. That's still to realize. But for Nereus, eventually they could try to begin building a node with some African or ACP countries to proceed on this. Europe is also the bigger donor to ACP countries, is really engaged on the issues of development, and this would be head-on that I would really like to see going forward. And congratulations to all of you. You know that I'm a big adept of Copernicus, European Space Agencies, European Space Agency, and my regret is that we don't have an European Oceans Agency, something that I'm trying to promote, but without success. And of Nereus, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And yes, as has been said, we and the corks have popped. It is quite evident that we need to keep our remarks reasonably short. The one point I would make is just listening to all of the information, all of the comments that have been made about the experiences of using Copernicus. If one were to do a word cloud, the words that come out most are helped us. Copernicus helped us to do this. Copernicus helped public authorities, it helped citizens to improve the lives that they are responsible for. So I think just from that we can be absolutely certain that what we are doing through ESA and through the Commission and with, as you can tell, the very deep support of the European Parliament, what we are doing is absolutely the right thing, and that we fully intend to continue to support Copernicus and to ensure its development. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the European Parliament. We have two more questions before we close. Roya, will you please? Where is the microphone? We lost it. Yeah, okay. I lost mine. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate Nereus, ESA, and of course the European Commission. This is a huge job. Really congratulations. But you know, I think we are only at the beginning. We are on the tip of the iceberg. And the biggest work we have to do is to convince more and more and more. I have a lot of experience with politicians. I did politics during 27 years. So I know it's always difficult to convince politicians and public authorities. And why it's difficult? It's difficult because they are not aware. and they're afraid from space. First of all, because the communication is too technical, and they think that space is very expensive, and that the money invested in space is better to invest on Earth. But of course, here we invest all those, of course, also on Earth. But they don't know that. And so I think we have all a big job to convince politicians and public authorities, and with Euresi, we are doing it also, and also we work together also with Nereus very often. And we will have now for next year, March, April, I don't know exactly, we will have a good exercise. We will go in province of Luxembourg. It's a rural region, and with the economic development agencies, we will invite all politicians and public authorities from the province, and we will talk with them. We will come with examples of space application, but not all space application. We must be very practical and to answer to their needs. And I think this is the most important. We must be, we must make a very big effort to be simple, clear, and to explain that space application is very helpful, not only in their daily life, but also in their work. And it's very good tools in their work, in their politician or management of their cities. So that's all what I want to say. Please change the communication. It's very, very important. We don't care if it's something, if these things are not technical, but very practical for those people. So congratulations and big success with this book, and congratulations also to you, Andreas.
Dominique Tiermans, thank you. Thank you for your comments and your commitment, particularly your political commitment. Roya, I think a final word from you is most welcome before the conclusions, absolutely.
I just wanted to react to Mr. Serrao Santos. Thank you for hosting, and thank you also for highlighting and expressing and giving new ideas for network activities. And I'd like to take the occasion to really react on it. We are, for those ones who don't know us, we are a European network, a network of European regions, giving them a platform to experiment, to learn more how to use space, how to use Copernicus. And in this frame, our network partners have identified that looking what can we do with Copernicus in the area of development cooperation, and especially with Africa, is a priority topic. And I see here the colleague from Bremen with the city of, Hanseatic city of Bremen, which is a German region, and they host in their territory a branch of the German Development Agency, and we have started an initiative that goes on now for quite some years, a collaboration exploring what can we do with Copernicus in development cooperation and in Africa. And currently they are realizing a large project looking in Togo and Benin. What can you do with Copernicus? How can you use Copernicus data for question on water management, climate, agriculture? And as Nereus and our partners, we have accompanied that project, and we have also brought partners here. And I think after the meeting, we will keep in touch with your office and also see what we can bring from you there. Thank you.
Indeed, I know you wouldn't like it, I wouldn't like it, but we are coming to an end. And so I think now the concluding remarks are in your hands, and we are very curious and looking forward to them. And before passing you the microphone, of course, a big thanks not just to you for hosting all of this, but to all those that made it possible, starting from Nereo, ESA, the European Commission, but also for those at more technical level, the Politecnico of Milano, as Ilaria mentioned earlier on, for the rigorous work, all the authors, where are the authors? Here, can you stand up, please? I think that we can clap 1, 2, Where are the authors? Thank you, and wonderful. And also a clap to the reviewers out there in the room, because this is also a hard work. Where are you? And of course, this evening also for the excellent social media coverage. Where is Remco Timmermans? Where are you? You are hiding behind. Here you are. Thank you. And Alexandre Deschamont for the web streaming. Alexandre, where are you? Here you are. Ah, yes, sorry. And then, of course, the European Commission, Julien Turpin, of course, you, Andreas, all of you. Isa, José, starting from you to Alexandra, to all the equipe, where is my friend Montaguta, all Isa, and of course Nereus. Nereus, starting with Roya, she's a friend, but she's also my neighbor in the Hessen office, and I can see how hard Roya and the team, Ilaria, Elena, how much effort to put all this together, but I think the result is here, and really, read it, because it's amazing, and you will not fall asleep. So fantastic. Thank you.
Hello. The other side of the room.
Ilaria has
Yes.
another communication.
Yes, I will take the floor. There's an empty slide here. We spoke a lot about communication, and this publication is the basis for storytelling. So storytelling is happening here tonight. You're here, and there are people that are connecting. The book you can bring along with you. And then part of the initiative is also to select 5 videos. And 5 Copernicus user stories have been selected in order to become a video and become a bit of the cornerstone of other policy domains. So they're all in the room, and I will also ask you to clap your hands for the... Voilà, the Walloon equipe, you can stand up. Tomorrow you will be shooting, and I think you can have a great clap for that. So climate, water, and energy, satellite imagery for an improved coastal management, and Nouvelle-Aquitaine. Third, agriculture, food, forestries, and fisheries, reinforcing the common agricultural policy, the RECAP project. You can also stand up. Mapping burned areas using Sentinel-2 images. So we go back to Greece also. And last but not least, mapping the health of water and sewage networks. So it's Planetech Italia with Metropolitana Milanese. Voilà, so we will leave you to the concluding remarks. Thank you, Lorenza. I pass back the...
Fantastic. It's really a community. We can see here, right here. Yesterday, it was not so concrete in 2012. Now, a paradigm shift, as Andrea said. This is concrete. This is a reality. So, final words to you and to the Vice President. Please come join me once again together. Once again together. Let's show that indeed it is a community. A final remark, a final word. Would you like to start? And then you expect just to stop and going for a drink. No, you will start. We will all be here to work again and to connect and to network, to develop the external dimension, maybe. Okay, here you go.
Okay, so thank you, Lorenzo. I will be very brief because this there's something waiting over there, and I think all of you want to go over there, have a small chat and a small drink. No, just to say that, as you know, I'm coming from the space world, the European Space Agency, but to see how these data are being used in daily life, in agriculture, in forestry, for disaster management, and so many applications is just fantastic. This is incredible how wonderfully these data are being used by so many people, and this is, of course, only a small fraction of what is possible and what can further be done. I think one of the secrets to make it possible, and was said today, is that we have a free and open data policy, and we have been fighting for that, and some of you have helped us fighting for a free and open data policy. It is the probably single most important criteria or element of the Copernicus program, because that really allows that these data go everywhere and everyone can use them very easily and for whatever application that is being used. And we see this also in our user uptake, in the number of people downloading data. We have 100 petabytes just we have reached 100 petabytes of downloads just recently, which is huge amounts of data because they are being really used by so many people. So as somebody coming from space, I'm so happy to see so many happy users and content users, and even if sometimes we are struggling getting the data to the right people, it is, I can tell you, we are working on the biggest data machineries in Europe to make this happen. But to see that this is working and that you are happy with it is for us a huge satisfaction. So thank you from my side. Thank you, of course, Nereus. Thank you, of course, European Commission, parliamentarians who have been helping us all along, and many of you here in the room and outside. Thank you very much.
Okay, it was a big pleasure to listen your story, mini story. It was a pleasure for every people and for me to understand your motivation to go with the data from Copernicus. I agree with Dominic Tillmans, okay, because I appreciate very well your speech, because it's not sufficient to have the data. It's necessary to apply this data, okay? And when you said it's necessary to be clear, to be simple, to communicate is very important, because from now, we privilege the infrastructure, the satellite, given data, but it's necessary to use this data, and for that it's necessary to have a pertinent application. A pertinent application for the end user, for the authority is very important. It is necessary for the politician to understand that, because with that is necessary. The investment for the infrastructure is clear in this case. For every people, for the community, sometimes it's not clear for this part of people to link the investment in the infrastructure with application. Okay, and I think I also say certain to our dear moderator Lorenza. Okay, we need. We need an excellent job during two past 2 words and manage the different speakers. Okay. I appreciate very well your involvement. Our joint initiative Copernicus will go on. It's a beginning for me. It's a beginning. We have to amplify each from now to amplify the success by the application and to develop a clear cooperation between each region. It's necessary to have some fertilization, cross-fertilization between some regions and to diffuse the best practice. It's necessary because I think the citizen in this case will be totally involved in this process. Nice evening for every people. A nice cocktail. Go on to discuss during this cocktail. Thank you.
Roya, would you like to say for the drinks and everything? I think we can just start.
Yes.
So we invite you all to start the networking and go to the more informal part of the evening. Thank you for joining.